So shortly after its release, Sonic Frontiers was seemingly doing well. Critics and fans thought the game was a fun time and could use some fixes and changes to maybe make the game even more of a fun time. And in late November, it was confirmed that Sonic Frontiers would be getting 3 major updates throughout 2023. And we wouldn't have to wait too long to see what these updates were. And since the Final Horizons update is finally here, I'm gonna go over all 3 of them in this one single video. Starting with the first update, which released on March 23rd, 2023, the Sight, Sound, and Speed update, which consists of a jukebox, a photo mode, and new challenge modes. Starting with the photo mode, I'm gonna be real, it's kind of underwhelming. The options are just not very versatile. The camera itself doesn't control very well due to the fact that this camera for some reason has collision. Unlike games like Spider-Man, for example, where the camera just phases through most obstacles and the character himself, Sonic Frontiers' camera gets stuck on everything. The ground, walls, and even Sonic himself, making things like close-up shots on certain terrain very difficult. Thankfully, you can zoom in and out along with being able to tilt the camera, but there's still not that many options in other things like filters. Instead of including sliders for things like saturation and exposure, they just have pre-made filters with don't really look great. They're not bad, but not being able to adjust it to your own liking is kind of a letdown. Along with that, there's a lack of things like frames, emotes, stickers, any of those things to make a photo mode that feels really complete. Again, my main reference for photo modes is Spider-Man 2, but I do hear that Mario Odyssey has a photo mode kinda similar to Frontiers, which kind of, makes me realize where the inspiration came from. The Jukebox is a nice addition though. You start out with about 15 songs, but as you traverse the island, you can collect more sound memories, and you can get up to 53 songs from past Sonic games like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic the Black Knight, Sonic 06. This is a neat addition, even if it doesn't really fit the game in my opinion, but it was a missed opportunity to include a jukebox like Sonic Generations where you could play them in cyberspace stages. And then the new challenge modes are a bit of a mixed bag. In Cyberspace Challenge, you marathon through an island set of cyberspace levels for the best rank you can, and it's whatever, I guess. I don't really care for cyberspace, so I don't care for the mode. But then there's the Battle Rush, which allows you to marathon through a set of enemies from an island for the best rank possible, and it's quite fun. A boss select for the Titans is something I still feel is kind of needed, but this is still a quite fun mode to be playing, especially on a maxed out file where you can blaze through fucking everything in seconds. These modes even give neat little rewards though. The Cyberspace Challenge you giving the power boost in cyberspace stages, making 3D sections a lot quicker, but for some reason 2D is still kind of a slog. And Battle Rush unlocks extreme difficulty, a difficulty where the game kills you in one hit, and you can't level up your stats. Why? This doesn't exactly make the game harder per se, because this isn't a hard game, especially when you have an indefinite block that pretty much removes all damage. Most damage. But bullshit things in this game like Giganto's lasers or the Arano Soldier's shields, this random as hell laser attack from Ninja. Basically, whenever the game feels like fucking you over, it goes from being a minor inconvenience to a painful experience on extreme. Besides that though, it doesn't really change the game up, besides one huge thing, the cyberspace times. Every S-rank for the cyberspace challenges have been revamped to be even harder, 1-2 withstanding because people suck at video games. Some of these can be quite tough though, making me even rethink whole routes. But for the most part, especially with the power boost, it shouldn't be that bad. Sure, for more casual players it might be a tough time, but as for someone as seasoned as me, wasn't that hard. But other than that, extreme difficulty is fine, a fine mode. Moving on to the fixes though, starting with the biggest one being the Elder Coco's trading system fix. Now you can give him Coco in bulk, making the process a lot quicker. This was a necessity. They also let you toggle the Starlight event's meteor shower on or off, changing off the slot machine as well. You can also toggle the power boost cutscene on or off, because back in the old game, every time you got 400 rings, the power boost cutscene would play, and it was fucking annoying. Thankfully though, that has been fixed here. They added an asterisk for whenever you use the homing dash in cyberspace stages, along with an instant restart button for all things you can retry in the game. Overall, the update mainly just added content that should have been in the game at launch, with some of it being a bit of a letdown, but also there's not really anything bad per se, it's just alright. Next up we have Update 2, which came out on Sonic's birthday. Sonic's birthday bash includes Sonic's birthday, very descriptive, open zone challenges, and new Coco. Starting with the Sonic's birthday content, this includes multiple cosmetic changes to celebrate Sonic's birthday. Sonic, the Coco, and the NPCs all have goofy ass party outfits. The islands have character balloons, heart hoop rings, candy cane rails, and even a DJ mix to play as you roam the island. This neat stuff. It definitely is goofy as all hell, but it's a good goofy and a nice way to celebrate Sonic's 32nd anniversary. Then there's the open zone challenges, which are called the Axe and Chain challenges, which are basically a score attack for the islands, and it's actually pretty fun. This race has some decently high requirements, and finding a way to gain flow through things like obstacle courses, enemies, and guardians to obtain a high score is quite fun. This can sadly lead to you repeating certain spots due to how close some of these are together, but other than that, it's pretty fun, and your reward for ass-breaking all the challenges is the Spin Dash? Yeah, the Spin Dash is here and is like an amazing reward for these. Unlike the boost, the Spin Dash will send you flying off of any incline. For the most part. Sure, it's not a completely momentum accurate spin dash, but it is just so much fun to skip things and send Sonic flying like a cannonball. It's just so insanely fun to use, you have no idea. And the fact that you can boost into a trick state and then jump to give yourself more height is just so much fucking fun. You have to play it to believe it. Thankfully, it's not a relap of the boost where it's pretty much the same thing except, you know, it's in a ball. No, it just makes you go flying off of any possible incline, and you can use the boost if you want to just stick to ground, so it's a nice middle ground between the two. You can even use the spin dash in cyberspace, and it actually makes cyberspace kind of fun. There's a lot of hidden paths and ways and skips you can take with the spin dash, and it makes these levels 10 times better than they actually are. It actually controls pretty decent and makes 2D cyberspace actually quite fast, faster than the fucking power boost. Then there's the new Coco, which are multiple Coco hidden around the island that are given to the Elder Coco to give you an extra boost gauge. The sections you go through are a lot more creatively designed obstacle courses with unique gimmicks like wall running, quick stepping, light dashing, and a huge emphasis on spike balls. But they're all pretty fun and unique, one of them being quite gimmicky where you collect rings to reveal the path forward, which makes me question, but I like these due to how unique they are compared to the regular obstacle courses. It's actually quite fun. Some of these are just challenging or just a nice use of things that felt underused in the main game. For example, wall running. In the main game, it was preceded by a dash panel all the time because it was broken 24/7. At least they give the thing a damn try here. Moving on to extra content in the game, here we're gonna start with the New Game Plus, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a New Game Plus. Sadly, there's no true hard mode to make the New Game Plus a more interesting playthrough. It's just kind of pathetic as you blaze through enemies in cyberspace, even if the game still makes you go through that damn tutorial. What the fuck, man? They also added new sliders, which change the jump deceleration, which finally lets you keep your momentum when you jump, and the deceleration rate, which counts your momentum after you let go of the analog stick, which makes the game feel a lot better, adding actual, physics. These even carry over into cyberspace, which helps you maintain the flow a lot. And now you can also maintain a boost when you jump, helping you maintain the flow, truly. It's iffy. It works here and there and only really works on flat ground, but it's still a nice move to have. You can also now remove the dramatic skill battle camera, and the cyberspace boost background music. Personally, I prefer the skill camera. It just looks stupid without it, you know, and lacks the spectacle, the only thing that actually makes the combat worthwhile. And also, I kind of prefer the boost background music. It makes me feel fast. I've always liked that trend in Sonic games. I hope they don't get rid of it. Ria Island also has been changed on easy difficulty. I don't know how to feel about it. They just removed the parts that were broken, and instead of fixing them, they just kind of put a band-aid on it with basic homing attack chains. I recommend you go hard. It's not that bad, but if the game's giving you a bad day and bugging you out a lot, or you just want to have a chill time, it'll definitely help you out. New sound memories have also been added to the island to include previous island movement themes, so now you can listen to your favorite movement throughout any of the islands. This is honestly a change I really like. Now I can listen to Chronos Movement 5 whenever I want, because it's the best movement. Objectively. Shut the fuck up. A new progress tracker has been added to the map selection screen and the transition screen. You can also now clear times in arcade mode or cyberspace challenge. And even more asterisks have been added to the game. You get a white mark for using the homing dash, a red mark for using the spin dash, yellow marks for the jump deceleration, and a blue mark for using the power boost. Which makes sense. I guess can differentiate people who do a true speed run from the people who are glitching and using the extra content they got from the game. And now there's a true 100% reward for doing everything on the islands. A Burger King crown. What? So Cyberspace Challenge gives you the power boost in cyberspace, Battle Rush gives you extreme mode, and doing the action chain challenges gives you the spin dash. And what do you get for 100% in the entire game? A fucking Burger King crown. On to the next episode. Sonic Frontiers, the Final Horizon update. This consists of new playable characters and a new story. So let's start with the new story first, actually, because that's what I usually start with. Let's just get into it. So after you beat Ria Island, a big ring behind the Oranos entrance will take you to a completely different ending for the game. Personally, I feel this was a weird way of doing this. I feel like there could have been a more seamless transition, but overall I do get it. It even gets its own save slot, and it makes sense. But the story goes that Sage found out about another possible way to stop the end that is so remote that she didn't even consider it. Sage will reverse the rest of the crew's hand-holding so the others can go seek out the Chaos Emerald, while Sage tempers Sonic's Sire corruption so he can learn how to convert that corruption into power so Sonic can take down the end. Pretty simple ending that is thankfully so much more climactic than the original ending, with the characters actually now helping out and the final boss fight bringing me something I never thought I'd see again, a brand new Sonic form. Super Sonic 2 is just so badass. While the design might be a slight letdown, the quote-unquote aura of Super Sonic 2 is vastly different from the original. And we also get another new form with Super Sonic Cyber, which just looks fucking awesome. The stakes truly feel high in this rework, and I love everything about it. But they also went back and decided to fix some quote-unquote errors with the original story by explaining things like how Big got here, Dragon the Oasis and Ares, and the pinball minigame, which they deadass just say, don't worry about it. The effort put into this side of the update is extremely commendable, and I think the story here is great. I like all the characters and how they act in this game, even making Sonic seemingly more snarky in response to criticism of being a little too flat in the main game. Oh, and Amy still sucks, but that's for another day. The presentation sadly isn't up to snuff really here though. The voice acting is great, sure, but the animation quality of the cutscenes is clearly very budgeted. Characters move extremely slow and the animations just feel so stilted. Hell, even the side story cutscenes have been downgraded, where now they don't even animate the mouse, like at all. Then there's the gameplay, which is very mixed bag. Starting out with the playable characters, we're gonna start with Amy, and she's actually probably my favorite out of the three, despite how I hate her as a character now, but Tilly Dee, booey boo. She's actually really fun to play as. She's the most platform-heavy character, having a triple jump along with a hover descent, and her platforming sections built around these moves, along with things like her multi-homing attack, are just extremely fun to use in my personal opinion. Then there's Knuckles, the biggest disappointment since my son. I don't have a son. Knuckles overall controls like the others, which is fine, but sadly his two biggest things that make Knuckles unique are sadly kinda botched here. His glide and his climbing both suck, and it's a real shame. Starting with the glide, it has this awful transition animation, which sure looks nice, but takes up way too much time when you're just trying to get into the air and glide. Along with that, the turn radius for the glide is god awful. You can't redirect yourself on a dime for some reason, and Knuckles turns like a tank, which is so awkward when you're just trying to land on a wall or something. Then there's the actual climbing, which uses the same properties as Sonic's climbing, and it's just nah. I've already mentioned how bad Sonic's wall climbing was in the base game and Frontiers, so think that, but you had to do it a lot more. Whenever he has to turn a corner or touch the tip of a wall, it's annoying. It's so annoying to have to do any of Knuckles' platforming due to the fact that it mainly centers around his climbing, making him probably the least fun to play as. Oh, and they brought back the infinite jump glitch from Boom. That's just great. Moving on to Tails though, he's quite fun to play as. Oddly enough, he doesn't have a homing attack like the others, but thankfully his platforming sections don't really require it, and instead take a decent advantage of his flight, and I enjoy playing his sections, with them being sometimes more puzzle based. But sadly, Tails' Max Rings ability is the Cyclone. This thing skips the hell out of most sections, and you can just draw an infinity symbol with the side loop and you're just going what? It is the game breaking apart at the seams. Speaking of character abilities, they don't exactly have too many for combat. While Sonic's skill tree is definitely more combat related, hell, the game even suggests while playing as other characters to leave the combat to Sonic, the other characters' abilities, even Knuckles, feel more catered to traversal, which is nice, but it does make the combat as the other characters feel quite rough, especially since you have to level up all the characters' stats once again. But what are you even doing these platforming sections for, you might ask? Well, besides the Chaos Emerald relating task, you actually do the platforming for skill and map Coco. Yeah, these are pretty self-explanatory. You find a Coco and you get skill pieces or you beat up parts of the map, which I do quite enjoy these sections, Knuckles was standing, but the sad part is you don't really have to do most of them. You don't need all the abilities in the game, and you don't really have to unveil the map to even beat the game. Same goes for the puzzles this time around, which are actually not bad. They require you to actually use your noggin now, but they don't really have much of a reward besides just mapping out the map, if you ask me. Overall, I think the new characters added something great, but they aren't perfect. Also, another glitch with these guys is that if you have your deceleration rate at anything less than 100%, they will go motherfucking flying. I don't know why this is, I think it's just a bug with the game, but it's really weird. Like, it's still in the game to this day. I don't get it. Moving on to the Blue Blur though, let's talk about Sonic's section of the update where he follows a new gameplay loop. Here, you have to collect Lookout Coco by finding them in the open zone or completing cyberspace missions, climbing these new trial towers, and then completing the trials given to you by the pilots of the Titans. Starting with the new cyberspace, I'm gonna admit, they're a vast improvement to the game. For one, the game gives you the spin dash from the start, seemingly because these new cyberspace levels are built for spin dashing, and it is insanely fun. The level design here is great due to all the ramps and above the gap platforming that I love, with loops and multiple paths everywhere. Sometimes the levels even throw in gimmicks, like racing against a ticking bomb, avoiding bombs, a rocket boost, hell, even moon gravity. And for the most part, they all work to these levels' advantages, and they feel just so fun to play. I love the level design here. The missions, though, are pretty I like the hidden exits and the Silver Moon medals, mainly because the Silver Moon medals are just trying to get them in fast succession. I like that. And the hidden exits also encourage going through other paths. This might be a little hard though, considering that the game is suffering from a bit of popping. Yeah, I didn't mention this anywhere else, but the game's performance took a nosedive with this update. The game lags a lot more in the open zone and in cyberspace, and for some reason the popping has just been up by like 100. I don't know what happened here. But having to slow down to collect number rings and drop animals at drop zones isn't something I like in my linear Sonic levels. I just want to get to the goal. Besides that though, cyberspace is pretty fun, if only Sonic controlled good. The kicker here too is that these levels aren't exactly necessary. You will find a shit ton of lookout cocoa just by utilizing the dig spots. On my original playthrough, I didn't think about the new cyberspace stages because the game never really tells you about them. The stages also have new remixes that I personally love. In fact, the entire soundtrack for this update is great personally. The individual themes for character movements, the Oranos Island remix, and the new lyrical tracks, they're all just great. Congrats to the sound department. Then there's the trial towers themselves, which are pretty damn fun. Some people have said that it's a little too hard and has an insane difficulty spike, but honestly, I don't find these towers that hard. I don't know what it is for me. These were pretty easy to do as long as I kept my focus and not played too risky. These were just quite fun for me with the more unique level design, which I personally love. Then there's the trials themselves, which are These trials were all pretty pathetic and I don't know, I didn't really care about them. I didn't really remember or have a memorable time with any of them besides the Snake's trial. This one was annoying as hell. Never did the game symbolize that you could parry the shield when it comes back around, so a lot of people, including me, got stuck. But the final trial is probably the worst trial. This one puts people in a panic. The Master King Coco trial. This is a mode where you have to beat all 3 titans with 400 rings with only level 1 stats, and you have a perfect parry on hard mode that only lasts like 3 frames. Good luck. Now, look, I'm happy there's a difference in difficulty modes now. This is much appreciated, but a 3-frame parry in a 60 FPS game? This shit was so hard to get down. And along with that, the bosses aren't even telegraphed properly at all. Sure, you have your squiggly Spidey sense bullshit, but that doesn't help you learn how to parry, like at all. For example, Giganto's laser attack, Wyvern's tail attack. I didn't even let Knight do any of his attacks because I was just pissed. These bosses aren't made for a perfect parry. These are just annoying as hell. If you want to have an easier time, just go ahead and change the difficulty. There's no shame in it, but of course, I decided to do the whole thing on hard. Because why? I'm a masochist. Other than that though, that other thing that put me in pain during this brand new update was the new Guardians. All the Guardians on the island have been changed from their originals to make them a little harder and more interesting. Master Ninja is a lot faster. Tank, Caterpillar, and Spider all have their extra sections removed when they now fire projectiles, which you have to avoid, which is a huge improvement if you ask me, but personally, they didn't do it right. These projectiles just kind of fire out at a willy-nilly with nothing that really prepares you to avoid them. You will die a lot from what just kind of feels like unfair bullshit. The attacks are designed like a fucking 2D bullet hell game, but it doesn't work in this 3D action platformer. It just kind of feels like bullshit. Ghost stays as a favorite though. Only thing that changed is that he drains rings faster and that the platforming sections are now different, which is just, honestly, in my opinion, a huge improvement. Speaking of bosses, let's move on to the new final boss fight for Supreme/the End. The fight does start with the normal Supreme, but once you defeat that, the End has been completely revamped, to where now the End takes control of Supreme and uses it as its avatar. And this fight really does bring the spectacle. The fucking shit that Sonic does in this new form is utterly insane, and it makes the old fight look like a damn mess. Especially with another new form where Sonic gets shot out of a fucking gun that has now been dubbed as Super Sonic Cyber. And this just looks so cool. Overall, this might be one of the best Titan fights in the game in terms of spectacle. With the new remix of I'm Here by Kellen Quinn topping it all off, it just makes this fight so damn hectic. But sadly, that's just a spectacle. The actual fight itself isn't very good, sadly. Now look, I did say in the main review that all these fights were clearly meant to be pure spectacle, and that still stands to this day, but none of them ever confused me on what the fuck I should actually do. The end fight requires the player to do a bunch of things that are just never explained in the game at all. Yes, you can dodge behind Night Shield in the fight to change targets, but most people don't know that because the game never actually tells that this is something you can do. Having to quick side loop a part of the boss's body is also something the game never, ever makes you do. The fight overall comes off as kinda sloppy. Even if the Master King Koko gives you advice that you only get from 100%ing the island, this just feels dumb. Sure, it encourages exploration, but nobody wants to 100% a game just to beat a damn boss. That's a lot to ask of a player. But for as bad as the boss is, honestly, shit, this is so cool.
I'm here, reaching far across these new frontiers. With my life, I fight this fear. In my hands, I hold the ones I love. Walk forward through the cold tide. Always to new horizons.
Overall, this update was a huge improvement to the ending of the game. While not perfect at all, the amount of effort and love clearly put into this game is something to kind of marvel at. People at Sonic Team truly do care about making the best game they can, and this proves that. If given the right amount of assets and the right amount of time, this team can truly make something great. So thank you, Sonic Team, for all the hard work that you put into this game. Always to new horizons. And before I go, I have one last requirement for the update. Maybe a special, superfluous update. Remove the damn pinball! I fucking hate the pinball! Every time I play this game, I want to get rid of the damn pinball! Okay, so as I was recording update 2, they decided to drop a patch for the game related to the Final Horizons update, removing a decent chunk of the criticism I had that I've already recorded for the damn audio. So I'm just gonna add this to the latter half of the video because I'm gonna get like endless comments about this shit unless I do. So like, yeah. For one, easy mode has been made a lot easier with a few adjustments to things like the tower level design. Sonic has adjusted stats in the Master King Koko trial now, and along with the regular trials. For example, the Master King Koko trial has been revamped to give you 600 rings and shorten the health of the Titans, along with a much longer parry, borderline the default parry. Overall, these are fine adjustments, but as someone who doesn't play as easy mode, I don't care. Then there's the adjustments to the new playable characters. For one, the damage they deal with upgraded stats has increased significantly. Like, extremely significantly. I don't know if I find this is too good of a thing, because the extra playable characters now blaze through bosses easier than Sonic did, but I guess it's decent, but like, it just feels a bit like overkill. It feels like overcorrecting. The biggest change though is that they actually fixed Knuckles' glide. For one, they removed the transition animation, and they also fixed the turn radius, which is great. That's actually a really good improvement. Then there's changes for replayability, like the pink panels on the towers responding after a certain time / distance. If you die before a checkpoint in cyberspace now, the game resets the time to 0, besides in the cyberspace challenge. And the perfect parry timing on hard mode has become a lot more forgiving. The fight with Knight also in the Master King Coco trial now teaches you how to switch targets, and there's other fixes, but for example, they didn't actually remove the infinite jump glitch, so yay. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. Leave me the fuck alone.